What's going on, y'all? Bud Elliott here at the Cover 3 College Football Podcast, and happy to be back here shooting a Nolecast. Not a ton of stuff's been going on with FSU, but certainly enough stuff now has piled up that we do feel like we probably should do another episode here as we ramp up to the season. Going to kick off season preview week coming up very soon as well. And excited. So, different mic tonight. Honestly, I was letting my kids play around with my regular mic setup, and they were shooting a little show on their baseball and football cards. And yesterday was not great as far as the mic setting. So I got to check exactly what they might have touched here. So I have used this microphone several times when I was in LA at Elite 11, and it worked okay. So I think we're going to just roll with this for tonight. I don't want to risk putting out a product that's a little sketch. So I have some more time. I will look into that. I feel like this should be at least decent quality. So a couple things. Number one, how much fun was it watching Cal Raleigh last night? Just hit a million bombs and win the home run derby. And if you haven't seen Cal Raleigh, the video of him as a kid talking about, hey, I just won the home run derby. And that was really cool, honestly. So I thought that was pretty dope. That's on my list tonight. And I let my boys stay up and watch it, and it was pretty fun. Also, Graham and I will be down there in Tampa for the Tampa Knowles annual block party on August 9th. And if you want to use the promo code Nolecast10, that is promo code Nolecast10, you can get 10% off your tickets. So awesome there as well. Really looking forward to see you guys. Hopefully a little bit better season this year to be able to talk about and preview. And I genuinely do think it'll be a lot better season. How much better? Maybe get to that towards the end of this show. The thing that we got the most questions about, though, is, hey, bud, are you going to do a show on recruiting? Hey, bud, are you going to do a show on recruiting? And I am right now. And I have some mixed thoughts on the recruiting process and whatnot. So anyway, here we go. First, I do want to tell you that Chad is an awesome guy to work with for your home loan needs. I know we've sent him over 500 loans over the years. Legendary team does a great job. 844-FSU-LOAN. 844-FSU-LOAN is the number to call. I know Chad just absolutely lives and dies with all FSU stuff, and so I'm happy to be able to put out an episode tonight and more going forward. I think we have some exciting team members likely to announce for the show coming for the fall as well to kind of spice things up a little bit and provide more of the consistent coverage that I want, but also, still a whole lot of me, mostly me, in terms of crafting the show, and Graham as well. So Florida State today, let's pull up exactly where they sit. I know we've had some rankings updates on 24/7 Sports, and I also know that we have some now that On3 acquired Rivals, and so they're going to, I guess, funnel their ratings through that. So in the composite ratings, Florida State sits at 15th. I believe they are 13th when you pull up the 24/7 Sports only ratings. So some services like certain FSU prospects better than others, but yeah, we're sitting here 13th, 15th, whatever. Like, not a top 10 class, but a class that is solidly inside the top 20. And a lot of people are really excited with what they got going on here. And I'm kind of two minds. And we'll start big, and then we'll get a little bit more granular here. Number one, this is pretty much on pace with how FSU has recruited under Mike Norvell. Okay, if you take a look at it, under the composite, they've been I'm not even going to count like the COVID stuff, but 22 and 23, and then 20, 20, 12, last year 19 with that flourish at the end, and then 11th so far this year, and then obviously they're down to 15, 13th. But regardless, they're not cracking the top 10 under Mike Norvell, which I feel like is a massive disappointment given what Florida State is. You can talk to me about a lot of different factors. The snub, how that impacts it, the changing landscape of the sport certainly has an impact. The conference and like the changing conference stuff. FSU has not changed their conference yet, but they certainly, I would say, probably will within the next half decade or so, if not a bit sooner. That's not a hint. I'm just saying, I'm covering my bases there to say, if not a bit sooner. So on the one hand, you could be like, this is nothing special. FSU hasn't recruited worth a damn under Mike Norvell by historical FSU standards. On the other hand, you could be more of an optimist, and you could say, hey, look, this is actually pretty good given what they're coming off, which is a 2-10 season. They just went 2-10. They had the team quit on Mike Norvell. He lost the pulse of his program, and we'll see if he can get that pulse back. So from that standpoint, yeah, I certainly get it. I think there's a real chance that this shows some program health. It shows they do still have significant donors coming in as well. So, that is good. Obviously, could always use more. That battle's end, no doubt. Put your money to a good purpose and a good cause. Like if you consider FSU football being good, a good cause, obviously. If you're a Gator or Miami fan, hate watching this, you probably would not agree. But those fan bases had tough days today as well because, well, Texas happens to almost everyone. And today, yeah, the Gators and Canes kind of got by Texas swooping in and landed some of those top targets for Gainesville and Coral Gables. But we welcome that audience to our show, of course, as well. So, yeah, I mean, you're sitting mid-teens. You already have a decently high number of players in the class. 22 commits is, larger than all but like 6 or 7 programs in the top 20 so far. You are ahead, certainly ahead of programs like, like in North Carolina, which has 26 3-star commits and 6 blue chip kids. So you have 15 and 7 according to the composite. If you actually click into this, you look at 24/7 sports ratings, which people will bristle at this, but I mean anybody is free to run the data. 24/7 Sports has been the most accurate rater of players, and by a pretty healthy margin over really any time period that you would like to pick. But for the ratings on 24/7 Sports, they have 7 blue chip kids and 15 non-blue chip kids. Do I think that Mike Norvell has hired better recruiters this time around? I don't think it's materially so. I don't know that kids care about winning as much as fans do. And that's not like, hey, FSU kids don't care about winning. That's just in general, I'm not sure that kids care about winning all that much. They don't want to play for some crap program that loses all the time. Certainly not the case. But if you look at it, I definitely think that they have some ability to look past a bad season, and they want to believe in a place that has good geography, has money, pays on time, does have a reputation for putting guys into the NFL. Obviously, a lot of history and tradition. There are still, despite all the message board doom and gloom, still a lot of reasons as a recruit to like Florida State. And that's not trying to be like, hey, recruits go to FSU. That's not my job. But I don't believe that this start evidences necessarily a real uptick in the recruiting quality or the recruiting approach. I just think they kind of are what they are, regardless of what they do on the field, to the downside for the most part, or the up. Now, if Norvell were to get fired, I'm sure it would have some impact on the class. If what they're selling to kids, which is a major bounce back on the field, I do know that. They're not giving them a specific number, but they're telling them they're going to be a lot better. If I'm a recruit and I'm in this class and I'm like, okay, a lot better, is 7-5 technically a lot better than 2-10? Sure, right? That's a 5-win improvement. That's pretty good. Is 6-6 technically much better than 2-10? Yeah. But that also means you're committed to a program that's not getting talked about, like with the exception of, hey, are they going to fire the guy or not? Really not talked about in the national space, which is probably how you consume college football and college football coverage if you are a recruit. Like that can hurt the class certainly. So I don't know if that's going to hold together. There are some kids in this class who I like quite a bit. Chauncey is obviously a stud athletic corner. I mean, this dude has the length. He has elite speed. Now, is there some refinement in the game that he needs? I think certainly. But from a tools perspective, we know that 5-star recruits get drafted over 60% of the time. That's a really high hit rate, and that's only been increasing over the years. Here's a new one for you. This is actually coming out in my blue chip ratio piece, which comes Thursday in CBSSports.com and 24/7 Sports. 4-star recruits are getting drafted over the last couple of years at a 25% clip. That's actually up significantly from what they used to be, which was just shy of 20% a little over a decade ago. So in about a decade, I think it's because of the industry's insistence on having verified times, having verified measurables, not taking a high school coach's word for it, right? Not saying, yeah, that guy looks big. Like knowing, okay, neck size, shoulder width, hand size, shuttle, legitimate, like verified 40 on the laser, birth date, putting those into algorithms and using those to help project what the player will be. In addition to having digital film on players and allow you to like to watch it from anywhere and not have like go high school to high school to collect, VHS tapes like we had to do probably 20 years ago, maybe not 10 years ago necessarily. That's all made the recruiting industry much better. So, I mean, look, it's not really groundbreaking to say that Chauncey is a really nice player, but he truly is. That is FSU's only top 100 player in the class for now. I think Rankins, the defensive lineman out of Georgia, does have some real upside and is an important player for FSU to get because their defensive line recruiting under Mike Gravel has just sucked like crazy. I mean, it's just been depressing for the most part, especially out of high school. And now that I think we could say the portal, at least for this cycle, and I would guess for coming cycles, has pretty much dried up. Like the quality of player in the portal this year was nowhere close to what it was in prior years because teams now have figured out they have to hold on to their studs for the most part. You have to do a better job of recruiting the defensive line and also the offensive line. We'll get there in a second. Out of high school, but I mean, Rankins is a good start. You want to add more top defensive linemen with him. They don't really have those top guys right now, honestly. James Carrington rated 40th at the defensive line position. That's not awful, but I mean, to me, that if you're putting together a class that you think really is going to help this program take a step forward, I mean, I think you'd want the 40th best defensive lineman to be like the third or preferably the fourth best defensive lineman who you sign in this class, not the second best. So we'll keep monitoring the situation to see if FSU can get back in it. With a couple of these guys who've gone elsewhere, obviously there is a price component to this, and FSU is certainly willing to pay some of these guys, but your DE3 might be somebody else's DE1, if that makes sense. And so they might be willing to overpay because, for you, it's like, okay, we like this kid. We want him in our class. For them, it's like, yeah, we need this kid. We have to have him in our class. So, but look, that applies to you at FSU too. Like I'm certain of it that FSU on certain guys has paid more because for like a Texas or an Ohio State, this kid is like the second or third player they want to take at the position. And for FSU, it's the first because that's just kind of where they are right now. All right, so defensive line, at least they're taking some bodies. I like the Rankins take. I think that's solid. I'm interested to see how Carrington continues to improve. They are trying to attack it with some numbers. I do have some major pass rush concerns with this class. I don't know. I mean, after the whiffs you've had in the last couple of years on the recruiting trail when it comes to rushing the passer, man, I don't know what you're going to do about that in the future. I guess you just have to be at the mercy of the portal and really, really overpay or try to manufacture pressure. But none of those are really the stuff that you want. I do like the Lopez take quite a bit out of Chaminade. I've seen him at multiple camps. I like his nuanced route running ability. I like his quickness. I really like his deceleration. This is a receiver who is able to shut it down quickly and then also get back into his route. And it's sort of like the Top Gun thing, right? Hit the brakes, he'll fly right by. I kind of see that in Lopez here. I went back and watched a lot of his camp tape. To me, like that's how this player is getting open. So I do like that take quite a bit. I know he's a 3-star. I think he's a useful player for you in what you want to do in this offense. Flipping Devin Carter back from Auburn, I think Devin Carter is a nice get in this class and one that, like, man, if you're not signing former legacy kids who are like, I get losing out on the offensive tackle, who's a legacy out of Arizona, but like he's going to programs that are really, really on their game right now, like really elite level recruiting programs, and FSU's not that right now, so I get that. But like Carter, you should be able to beat out Auburn for a legacy. It's not like you're beating out like the national title contenders or having to beat those out to get him. So I think Carter is a really nice get for this class for where you are right now. Jaden O'Neal, I definitely have some concerns about. I have not talked about Jaden O'Neal yet here. I wanted to gather as much information as I could. So let's go positive first. Jaden O'Neal does have some ability. In fact, I think he does have some some upside and some high ability. He does throw the ball pretty hard. He's also going to be a 4 high schools in 4 years type kid. Okay. He is somebody who moved to Oklahoma. I know it was under the old Oklahoma offensive administration or offensive staff. And then they basically moved on from him and liked somebody better. I do think that kind of says something if like a kid moves to the state where he's going to go to school, like after he commits to you, and then that happens. I don't know if that says a good thing. Talking to people in the industry, they're like, man, Malzahn at UCF, he really applied some of these lessons that he learned from Auburn, which is like you can take the 4-star that maybe a lot of other schools don't think is a 4-star, and you can get a lot of media credit for that and kind of play the media game, even if it's not somebody who really will help you win or like somebody who you really think fits your roster, but you have to understand how to work the boosters. Again, I'm not saying that's what happened here. I hope that Mike Norvell wouldn't sign off on doing something like that. But I do have real questions about how O'Neill fits the Gus Malzahn scheme. No questions about how Keyshawn Henderson or some of the other targets that FSU was in on fit what Malzahn does when Malzahn's offense is running well. And when it is running well, it is an offense that is seriously threatening the defense with the quarterback's legs. You could talk to me about the Jarrett Stidham stuff all you want, but that Jarrett Stidham offense was nothing special. And the passing concepts, I mean, you didn't hire Gus Malzahn to throw the football. You hired Gus Malzahn to run the football. So here's where the unknown of price comes in. Assuming O'Neill got, I don't know, $1 million or something close to it, because a lot of these quarterbacks get a good bit more than that. But like, that's kind of the going rate for quarterbacks. And he's a 3-star on 24/7 Sports. I totally get that rating. His rating has been dropping quite a bit on all of the services that I can tell, at least. So he was one of these kind of grow early, know about early kids, and that gets you a pretty high rating early on. He peaked as high as 54th in the country, 2 years ago, it looks like it was, and has now been kind of steadily dropping out to where now, at the latest update in mid-June, he's now 205th. I don't know if he's going to finish as a 4-star or a 3-star on 24/7 Sports or on Rivals or on 3 or ESPN or whatever, but his trajectory as a prospect is clear, and it's down as more and more players are discovered who are better than he is as prospects, or at least evaluated to be as such. No recruiting rankings are perfect. I mean, being a high 3-star, low 4-star does not mean that you're going to suck. Jaden O'Neill might kill it in Tallahassee. But I do have some major concerns about that, especially if you paid the big money to get a guy that I don't know who your real actual competition was, because I don't think Oklahoma was real competition. I don't think Oklahoma wanted Jaden O'Neill. I think they were going to move on from Jaden O'Neill. That's what I was told. So, like, who did you play against, right? Who did you compete against to get this guy? And are you spending money on this quarterback just to kind of get, a win up on the wall to impress the boosters? Or are you paying up for him because you actually think he fits what you do on offense? And I do think that's a real key here, guys. Because the one is like a short-term PR win, and the other is like, yeah, we think this guy can help and fit what we do. The other kind of, there's so much to this, right? Could Jaden O'Neill help kickstart your recruiting a little bit? Possibly, right? He didn't get an Elite 11 invite for a reason. I'm not going to go into all those details, but he was not close to being chosen, from what I understand, and he did not perform well at the regional. But still, he is a name who was one of the early top recruits. Early recruiting rankings, I'll admit it, they pretty much suck. They move around a bunch because certain guys grow earlier than everybody else, and everybody else kind of catches up to them. So if you're a big name and you're good as a sophomore, you are likely to be rated high. And it's our job as an industry to kind of flush the guys out who get caught. It's a real folly of recruiting rankings if you take that player who grew before everybody else but then got caught, and you just kind of have that bias where you don't want to move him back down in the ratings even as other players pass him in terms of prospect quality. But could he get other top receivers to come to FSU? Yeah, certainly. Is he a better option than spending $150,000 on a guy who's a really good runner who can throw it a little bit, I doubt it personally. Like I don't buy that. But hey, it gets you positive headlines. It gets some of the fan base fired up, and if those people decide to donate, then I think even if O'Neal is a bad fit, and even if you don't think he'll ever play at FSU in terms of like make an impact, and he certainly could, that is very possible. He doesn't suck. I just don't think he's amazing, and he's certainly not a great fit for what Malzahn has done when Malzahn's offenses have been the best that they've been. But even if that's all true, if you get more people donating and more people fired up, then it does potentially allow you to recruit other positions better. Okay. Recruiting is a complicated game. There's no like surefire thing here. All right. So that's O'Neal. I knew that was going to be a tough discussion. He doesn't suck. I question the motivations for the take, and I question who the competition was. And we cannot make a final judgment on that until we know the exact number that he got paid and what percentage of your actual payroll that represents. But, if it's like 5 or 6% of your payroll just to make a statement on a guy that doesn't fit what you do, that doesn't seem real bright to me. It also, you could argue, hey, there's no guarantee Malzahn is going to be in Tallahassee for more than a year, right? Like this is a guy who some people thought was going to retire and didn't. And maybe retiring or still being head coach, maybe the offensive coordinator thing is a compromise for him, not having to really recruit, just call plays, that kind of stuff. So if you're Norvell, maybe you're like, well, we may not run this Malzahn stuff forever. This may just be a 1-year thing to save my job. Okay. We actually got a lot of content tonight. It's pretty interesting. All right. Offensive line recruiting. I got a lot of hate when I said that I like Herb Hand was not one of FSU's top choices to be the offensive line coach. Common sense told you, in addition to the information I had, that if they wanted him, they would have got out and got him right away. Gotten him? That's really not great podcasting, but they would have gone out and got him right away and didn't. They whiffed on their top targets for the offensive line coaching position. Look, he was with Malzahn for a long time, so I'm not trying to be a jerk, but like if they wanted the guy immediately, they would have gone out and got him right away. So far, the results on the recruiting trail on the offensive line are abysmal. Now, there is a chance that Landzier, and that is a different type of player, but in the quality of bodies, if you're really going to turn this thing around, you need to be recruiting players who look like the players that the top programs are recruiting, and that's just not occurring right now. So, lines of scrimmage and quarterback, so like the most important positions on the field, I would say are very disappointing in this class overall. And I question the allocation of resources there somewhat, and just not feeling it. You could tell me, hey, like, are they just taking some of these skill position guys to juice up their recruiting rankings? Again, like that would be kind of consistent with what people think Malzahn did at UCF. Like knows how to play the game, knows how to say, hey, look, we got a top 10 class, even if it's a little bit, empty calories, if you will. Although certainly some of these skill guys they got are legitimately really good. Like they're not taking just rando, highly rated skill guys, at least not in my opinion, just to juice the ratings. But anyway, that's interesting. I got a lot of questions about the Chris Hummer article on FSU's revenue sharing contracts. And I said this already on Cover 3 last week, but I can go a little bit more in depth here on it. One, I think it was a well-reported article. I think if you look at it, and I know Sonone has echoed this as well, and you might say, hey, Bud, you work with the guy, you're going to defend him. Sure, but I also know Chris to be a hard worker and a guy that like I interacted with and thought he did a nice job before I got to 24/7 Sports. So anyway, I take that for what it's worth. But I think it comes down to this. The Big Ten has like standard form contracts for rev share that pretty much all the schools are using. We know this because it got revealed in the Xavier Lucas case when he transferred to Miami, and Miami got accused of tampering. And I think Miami's going to smoke Wisconsin in that court case, by the way, but we'll see. And the SEC also has some guidance on it that their schools have. The ACC did not give their schools any kind of guidance. So basically, what I think this comes down to is you can say these contracts are predatory or not. But if you're FSU, and I think in some ways I was like, man, you'd be crazy to sign this. But look, if you're FSU, you're trying to gain any edge you can. And I think you probably, if you're smart, you sat down with your decision makers, and this is rev share. This is not, I'm not trying to defend Graham. This is not battles in. Okay. Like this is a rev share contract from the school. If you're smart, you sit down and you say, okay, how big of a PR hit are we going to take if these contracts get out? And I'm not saying this is the conversation that was had. This is what I'm saying I think probably needed to happen in order for somebody to green light doing this. Because all the reporting I've read is that this is much more restrictive than the other contracts that the major schools are trying to give out for rev share. I think you say, hey, look, a lot of these kids, like if we present them with these contracts kind of late in the process, they don't have any leverage. They really can't go and transfer somewhere else this late in the season, right? It'd be very difficult. What are they going to do? Sit out and lose a whole year of rev share money and probably not get much more to recoup it next year? The really good players who have good agents are probably going to redline this, and we'll have to make a call on whether we want to allow that redlining or not. And in some cases, I think FSU probably either has or will accept the redlining there of some of these incoming players. And I bet you a lot of these guys don't have agents who know what they're doing. And if you get a contract that can lock in, how many 3-stars did FSU sign last year late in the process, right? So they signed, a ton. Like, let's count this up real fast. So they signed 17 3-stars late in the process. If you get like 10 of those 17 to sign these contracts that are extremely favorable to the school, and like 3 or 4 of those kids hit and become NFL players, or at least like really good ACC level players, and you got them locked in at rock bottom rates with extremely favorable extension terms and options, then you're probably like, hey man, the news cycle moves so fast that we'll take a little PR hit for this. We know we probably can't get away with this come the next signing cycle because, like come December, everybody will know. But we still got tremendous value against the market for these guys that we have locked in on these deals. That's just my take on this. I haven't heard anybody else say that. Nobody else has said that to me. That's just the way I read this. So, if you're a pro sports franchise and you don't receive any guidance from the league, you're going to try to push the limits as hard as you can on some of these contracts. And, it's up to the player to push back, I think. That's kind of my take. So I know some people have called it predatory. I don't think I want to go that far, honestly. We'll see. I'll probably get accused of bias because this is an FSU show and I'm defending FSU there. But I also think what I just said was, maybe not super pro FSU in a way, because it kind of implies that I think that they knew what they were doing. And I do. So where will FSU finish class-wise? That is an excellent question. I'm going to go out and I'm going to say, if Vegas is right and FSU goes 7-5 or 6-6, I think they'll finish like just outside the top 20. Yeah, so just outside the top 20. Let's go ahead and talk a little ACC Media Day here, brought to you by Congruity at congruityhr.com. All your payroll, HR, staffing, insurance needs, Congruity at congruityhr.com is the number. Well, that's not a number. It's actually the email to hit up. So we've had about 7 or 8 Knowles businesses hit them up and definitely want to continue that if you like their services. So Congruity, hit them up, Congruity at congruityhr.com. All right. So let's go ahead and continue. Sorry, that's Congruity at congruityhr.com. Wanted to make sure that I said that correctly. A lot of people asking me, what do you think about Tommy Castellanos' comments and Tommy Castellanos' TikToks, which, okay, that was a little bit wild to watch. But a couple things. One, I don't think it's a big deal in terms of firing up Alabama, okay? Alabama is going to be mad and play hard in this game just as Florida State is. Okay. They both had disappointing seasons last year relative to their expectations. Yes, FSU's was much more disappointing than Alabama's was. But regardless, they're going to be pissed off. They're going to play hard. It's the first game of the year. Neither team is going to mail it in. Like, Tommy Castellanos could be like, we're going to call in a strike from the Death Star in Alabama. It doesn't matter. Like, they're still going to play a maximum effort. They're not going to give 125%. They're just going to play their best. Both teams are going to come out and play their best. They're not going to hit a little bit harder or anything like that. They're just going to come out and play hard. Some of the stuff I didn't love, right? Like throwing your former teammates under the bus, as that can be perceived. Obviously, you saw some teammates from Boston College clap back at Castellanos and be like, I don't really remember it the way you remember it, bro. But I get that. They did send it. They sent an ACC Media Day, so FSU's going to have him own the comments that he's made. And again, I don't know if the comments are all that bad. They're more just, I'm a little bit concerned, a little bit here, about what could the comments reveal about what Castellanos thinks he is and thinks he needs to do. That is a little bit of a concern for me, and I'll go into it here as to why. And if you pair this with him talking about how he feels like he's here to save people's jobs, and he knows that, I think the main thing to ask him is, you do know how, right? Like, the way in which you're supposed to save people's jobs here, if that's why you were brought in. It's the fit. It's the fit of your legs in Gus Malzahn's offense. It's not the arm. And so, when I see these comments and I'm like, man, and I see the ridiculous climb video that FSU put out, and I get it's state media, they have to run propaganda, even after a really awful season. Like, those people have jobs over there. So I'm not begrudging you guys that. Like I get it. That's how you make your living. You have to keep putting out content on it, even like if it seems ridiculous. I'm sure it felt ridiculous putting that video together. It was ridiculous to watch, but it's not really on you guys. Like, you got to promote the program, even if it feels silly. And there's plenty of other programs that are in way worse shape than FSU is, who put out far crazier propaganda stuff, if you want to call it that. But when I see the Castellanos is like training with Cam Ward and Shador's trainer and doing all that kind of stuff, again, that's great for developing as a thrower. And nobody would ever begrudge Castellanos from becoming a better thrower. In fact, that would be excellent if he could throw the ball a little bit better, because he has been objectively terrible as a passer by almost any metric that you want to look at, especially the deep accuracy stuff, which is something that Gus Malzahn's offense does kind of require when it schemes up those deep shots. Castellanos has a whole lot of non-competitive throws that, to use a baseball analogy, since we're watching the All-Star game here in the background, are just so far out of the strike zone. Like, they're just uncatchable. And I do hope that he doesn't have this thing where he's like, yeah, I'm getting drafted as a quarterback. Yeah, I'm going to light it up as a thrower. Like, dude, you were brought in to run. You're being paid a lot of money to run this offense, not to chuck it all over the yard. Maybe there's a game or two or three where he does have to throw it an awful lot. Malzahn's offenses, when they have to throw, typically lose the ball game, and sometimes handily. It's just, I know that's a correlation. Like, typically, if you run it at the end of the game, you're running because you have the lead. So is it correlation or causation? But yeah, if Malzahn's offense have to throw the ball a lot, they're usually dead on arrival. So that's a little bit. I'm like, man, I hope Castellanos has the confidence to lead the team, but also the common sense to play within himself and his actual skill set, which is running the ball with his legs. Every defensive coordinator in the ACC wants Castellanos to drop back and throw the ball. They are not scared of that at all. All right, so that's kind of what I make of those comments. Do I care that FSU sending Richie Leonard to ACC Media Day? He's been on the team, so not really. Do I care that FSU is sending Little? Again, he's been on the team, so that's two guys who can kind of a little bit explain what went down last year. That makes some sense to me. Okay, like, they're sending Darrell Jackson. All right. I mean, that's fine. He was a massive disappointment last year overall. Like a guy looks like Tarzan, but the play was way too much like Jane. Sorry, my phone screen got broken. I need to put new glass on. How do I do this? Hold on, I'm gonna pause. I sent this. Do I read into it that they did not send Shane Brown? No, not at all. Like Shane Brown visibly loafed on the field last year, did not try multiple times, obviously had the driving stuff going on. Like not a good representative of your program in the last 18 months. So no, I don't think sending Shane Brown would have been an appropriate decision for this team. Certainly not. All right, so I recently got the draft grades from somebody I trust. These are the ones that the NFL teams pay for. I think I'm pretty limited in what I can actually reveal here, but Florida State has two players who have a grade of likely drafted. That is Daryl Jackson, who's projected to be a second or third rounder, and Deuce Robinson, who's projected to be a fifth rounder. Micah Pettis is projected to be basically a seventh rounder, according to this. Again, these are not public. These are the ones the NFL teams pay for to kind of start things off for their scouting staffs, because NFL teams don't scout juniors a whole lot. They just scout the guys, or rather, they don't scout draft ineligible players. So this is kind of their starting point. Shane Brown, obviously undrafted grade. Roydell Williams, I think, just got on here because he was at Bama and he's a known commodity, but also undraftable grade based on last year. So, yeah, a lot of work to do for some of those guys. Certainly not a real talented team in Tallahassee based on what everybody's put on paper. Now, could a James Williams change that eventually? I think so, possibly. He had some nice reps. I saw him show up on Dane Brugler of the Athletic of his top edge rushers things. I don't think these draft grades are the be all end all. Again, as I said, I think they're just a general starting point. You're talking about guys who, like, I mean, they have almost 500 players graded here, right? Like that's an awful lot to have to do. I guarantee most NFL draft guys who work for these media companies are not having round grades on 500 guys so far. So these are not going to be the gospel truth. But they are an interesting thing to look at to kind of gauge where some teams are preseason. I thought that was pretty fascinating. Florida, down the road, has, let me see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys who are projected to be fifth round or better, and then 2 more who are kind of late round type stuff for them. So that's interesting. Miami, who took a bunch of transfers again, despite their elite high school recruiting, they have 1 first rounder, a second rounder, a third rounder, a fourth, and a fifth, allegedly, with obviously Prentice Maui Noah, the stud tackle they signed at high school, him being the top guy there. Clemson does not have as many guys on this as you would think they would based on some of the media hype, but they do have quite a few. I mean, they have 12 guys who are sixth round or better. So that's not nothing. And Alabama, Alabama does have a lot, actually, like a whole lot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we got 14 with Alabama, but 3 of those are like seventh round, and then 1 guy's undrafted. So, yeah, those are like the 4 most talented teams that you play this year. So this team has a lot to work with. I don't know if there's a lot of work to do. I don't know if there's a real right answer as to, hey, do you want to send this guy to ACC Media Day or that guy or whatever? I'm not really sure how hyped up fans are to hear from these guys. I think they're probably just excited to see, like, hey, are you somewhat competitive against the teams that pay real money for their roster? I'm not talking about the crap dregs of the ACC that it's embarrassing to be in competitive games with, which at times you are, right? Especially last year when this team quit on the staff. So again, I think it's smart to not bring guys who visibly quit on the field last year. I'll say that. A couple of them are back. Whether it was smart to bring those guys back. Again, it was such a blank show last year. I don't know how much options you actually had to totally clean house. Maybe you have some guys who the new staff feel are redeemable once they quit. But I don't know, man. It's kind of hard to trust those guys again once they quit on you. That's my general take on ACC Media Day. I don't know how brash Castellanos will be. He might have already got it all out of his system. I wonder if FSU gives him a little more media training here. And you know what? Maybe he just comes up and absolutely crushes it this year and throws for 3,000 yards and becomes a good passer out of nowhere. But I kind of doubt it. So he's got to stay healthy. We got a ton of questions, like an absolute ton of questions about Castellanos. If he does this, if he does that, if he does this, if he does that, what will FSU's record be? I think I'll just say this. If Castellanos rushes for 1,000 yards, that suggests that he has stayed pretty healthy and that he is enough of a rushing threat that the rest of the offense is opened up, more room for the backs because eyes are on the quarterback's legs, more room to throw the ball over the top to deuce. Even if you're not great at doing it, you're still getting a lot of opportunities because people are so focused on the legs. I think if Tommy Castellanos rushes for 1,000 yards, FSU will win 8 or more games. That's kind of my general answer. And we've got a ton of these on the Patreon. Hey, bud, if this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens, they're kind of fun and entertaining, but like in my head, I'm like, these are all the same. And they can all be boiled down to, does Castellanos stay healthy? If he does, cool. FSU's going to be pretty okay. If he doesn't, I don't know. Kevin Sperry can run a little bit. We will see how that works. All right, here, let's go ahead and talk, of course, about Mad Show Township, the excellent For the Table restaurant group. Matt Thompson does an awesome job sponsoring our show, and I'm excited to kick yet another season off with those guys. A lot of questions about the ACC and the settlement. Woo! Okay, we were damn close, honestly, at figuring out. And I know I got to get this wall changed up here in the new studio because like the lighting in here is really jacked. But we were really close to guessing pretty close terms on this ACC settlement. The 75-25 basketball and baseball, football, basketball split for the rev share. That's pretty predictable. You had to have enough basketball, like kind of carrot to get some basketball schools to vote for you. SMU and Cal and Stanford not being eligible for the ratings pot, that I did not expect. That's a major kick in the nuts to SMU, by the way. Like that's, okay. But that's even more money for FSU potentially. Already went over draft grades. This looks like a very short-term deal for the Noles, in my opinion, at least. One that is set up for them to get out of this conference before the end of the deal, but certainly not a lot of money is going to be required for them to leave this deal. And finally, the other question we got here, which system is best for FSU playoff-wise? Do you like the 4-4-2-2-1-1 thing where they were basically saying, okay, we're going to go to 16. SEC gets 4 guaranteed. Big 10 gets 4 guaranteed. Big 12 and ACC get 2 guaranteed. So the Big 12 has basically, it's been made known that they will not agree to anything that codifies their position as an inferior conference, even if we all know that to be true. In fact, I'll preview the blue chip ratio here. I think you could put the best 2 teams in the Big 12 together and they wouldn't win the SEC or the Big 10. There's just not enough talent. The team with the most draft picks in the Big 12 had 4. I think there were like 15 teams that had more than that last year. 14, so something like that. The ACC, for much of the same reason, should not codify itself as inferior to the SEC or the Big 10, even if we know it to be true. But it is true on a far less scale. So if you're Jim Phillips, you kind of got to be careful here. And even if you believe your league's going to blow up in a little bit, and I do, but like you actually produce legitimate national title contenders. In fact, you've produced what, 3 national champions, different teams in the last quarter century? Florida State, Clemson, Miami. Vatek played for it in '98. Obviously, not super relevant now, but neither is Miami's title, I guess. But at least Miami is still spending like they know what they need to do. I think you can't codify yourself as worse than the AC or than the SEC and the Big Ten, but you also really, under no circumstances, should agree to being placed on equal footing with the Big 12. The Big 12 doesn't have anybody who is seriously contending for the national title, and I'd be shocked if anybody from the Big 12 seriously contends for it in the next couple of years. If Texas Tech continues spending like this somehow, and I guess the somehow is just if Cody Campbell, that their oil billionaire, decides he wants to just do it every year. But like if that happens, then okay. In a perfect world, like that would give you 1, not 2. The ACC has 3. The Big 12 legitimately has 0. The ACC should not be agreeing, and I'm talking about like schools when operating at their peak that can actually get there and play at a power ratings level that is commensurate with what you see out of a national title team. The Big 12 has never had that in our lifetime, with the exception of Oklahoma, Texas, and now they're gone. The ACC, they should not be agreeing to that. I don't think they will. So 5 plus 11, I think, for me is better. I would rather just stay at 12, but 5 plus 11, some different conference stuff to work out. Not that it really matters all that much anyway. If FSU gets out of this long term, I think they will. Might it be a little rocky until then? Sure. But for me, it's 5 plus 11. I think that is much better for you as a league, and also much better for you as a school, most likely. So anyway, that's that for tonight. And I will talk to you guys again next week from Vegas, going out there for Big Ten Media Days. So take care, y'all.